Hello, friends. This is Sam Chaney reporting for Weaponized News. Today is May 1st, 2025. Thank you for joining us on this Thursday edition of Weaponized News. We have a very special guest online with us, James True, author, researcher extraordinaire, into all occult things especially, but fictional author. We're going to go over a few of his books, hopefully, his latest book. And it shall be very interesting, to say the least, here. Quickly, on this day in history, so we don't leave James hanging too long, I saw a few things, but probably, let me just blast through these quickly. In 2003, on this day of May 1st, keeping everything in the back of our mind, the occult working their rituals that we don't see, but it's going on here as we've gone through the season of sacrifice. We're now at the climax. So here we are to give you some context about maybe these guys have something else than what they publicly put forth going on here. In 2003, George W. Bush declared mission accomplished in his famous speech, declaring the end of major combat operations in Iraq on this day aboard USS Abraham Lincoln off the coast of California. You know what I mean? Skull and bones, like that. George W. Bush, and so on. A lot of things on this day, but we'll skip it. We'll go right to James here. Here's the segue to James, and this is how I first found James. Was his first book, or maybe not his first, but the one, and I couldn't even find it on my bookshelf. I feel embarrassed about it, but the mind control book with peeling back the eye here with some very dramatic symbolism. Here's the segue, the 3 steps of mind control, to talk to James here. And this is James talking about it. And the tagline of the show is break the mind control. So it's all tying together.
To drop the ego, they're going to tell you to eliminate all these things. They're going to tell you, more importantly, the blueprint of mind control. They're going to convince you of step 1, which is that you're broken. They're going to say you're broken. You're going to feel that they're right because you are miserable. And you're comparing yourself to other dry sponges, and you're like, this sucks. I am not having a good time. And this is your opportunity to fall into the mind control and feel better, because you will convince yourself I'm broken. And once you convince yourself you're broken, that's the first step of mind control. Step 2 comes in, which is we can fix you being broken, but you're not going to be able to fix it yourself. You're going to need to find someone outside of you who will fix you for you. And this is really where the hooks of mind control really sink in. If you are entitled to more, and if the system catches you trying to get more, and the system tells you that you are broken, and you believe them, it is fucking over. Goodbye. See you later. Maybe in 3 eons, maybe in a few generations, your great grandkids will wake up and try again. There's nothing wrong with this life. This is a life that's important. Your epigenetical vine needs just a few more generations to really get that funk right, to really build its momentum up. So this is not a contest. I swear it's not.
Right.
In fact, it could be that the worst thing you could do is pop up too soon, right? That you could pop up in what you think is spring, but it's not. Here comes a cold snap. So there's no winning by coming first here. But if you can traverse through these 3 steps of mind control, if you can still maintain your appetite after all that suffering, you will find that the appetite satisfies itself simply because your aperture opens. There's a conscious lens inside of you, and that lens dilates. It opens wider. And when it opens wider,
James True, how you doing this Thursday?
Fantastic. How you doing, Sam? Good to be here.
I'm doing good. Can we break the mind control, James? That seems to be the major issue out there, because after the last 5 years, we saw just extreme levels of social engineering and mind control take over the masses, and it's pretty scary, honestly.
Yeah. Well, the good news is that, yes, you could break it. The bad news is really bad news, and it's that most people don't want to. There's the rub.
Most people don't want to. People are happy in the state, in the status quo, the way things are, no matter how much abuse that we suffer.
Yeah.
We just
They
live
like
with it, huh?
They love it. They like it. Yeah, and there's actually an economical, energetic reason for that. So it's not pure self-loathing. It is self-loathing, but it's profitable energy. We profit from setting up certain uh, uh, scenarios in our head that aren't necessarily true. So we'll sometimes victimize ourselves in order to solicit sympathy, for example. But even as a government, even as a collective, we victimized ourselves from this sort of Stockholm syndrome relationship we have with an abusive partner that we call government. And as you justify yourself in the back of the trailer, pretending that the holes in the wall are just sort of one night, or this happened and just that happened, you end up bearing children, and your children are raised in the same place. And after a while, it becomes too expensive to say, look, this is fucking nuts. And quite frankly, this is literally just where it's at. And if you can get here, and I do mean this in a good way, because if you can get here and truly understand the broken psyche of the American, the average American, this makes sense that they don't want to wake up. It makes sense because their legs have sort of been broken very young, like veal, or their minds are meant to stay sort of vegetative so that they grow fat and luscious like a fruit. And we're picked, it's a big difference between growing up in, for example, Israel and growing up here. It's a very different mindset. It's a very softer life. And I think that's honestly on purpose. It's part of the farm that America is supposed to be.
Who are the farmers, James?
I used to tell you that it was like the black nobility or the gray nobility or the red not so nobility and the Luciferian quantifarians and the quantarian reptilians and the space popians, and all those are still could be valid. They could be. However, I don't even know what reality is. Like truly, I don't really know what reality actually is. And when I've been sort of stepping away from the truth market for a while, only because I've noticed I don't truly know what reality is. And because of that, Sam, it's kind of made all the like who's running the world's kind of superfluous. It's not that it's not important. It's that I'm looking at something that seems to be more profound, more personal to me. And that seems to be answering a lot more of my questions about chemtrails, about why people lie to themselves, about why we even have lies to begin with. And in my mind, it's put me in a much brighter Promethean place to watch the world, even in its butt fuckery that's happening now, and truly see that there is a design and a system to this place, and that it's not just purely nefarious. It actually has a conscious purpose. It's sort of a grow light. It's sort of an operation where someone has come in and set up a grow room, but the product is consciousness. And in order to spur consciousness to grow at a fast speed, you're going to need a certain kind of conscious awakening that's happening all the time. And the best way to awaken consciousness is just through stimulated vitriol, through a constant sense of lying. Is really seems to be the only thing that causes consciousness to start to discern, i.e., come online. So it's almost like a stimulant, And when I look at the world like that, oh my God, all the lies make sense. Everything starts to make sense. And it's really more about what's behind the curtain. What's the actual purpose for why we're being lied to so much that it's ripping our eyes open and we're forced to look at something when otherwise we wouldn't have to.
We wouldn't have to. Well, the lies are getting more and more overwhelming. What's your what are your thoughts on this new Trump administration? This is the first we're celebrating, or they are celebrating the first 100 days a week this week.
The first 100 days of what? That's this part I don't know.
Of the Trump administration.
Oh, got you. So I believe that
Is there any difference between him and Biden administration?
Right. I believe that the official country actually legally closed I've been watching this DPA thing that's been started since the 50s, this Defensive Protection Act. It's the idea that government's allowed to create its own industry, and that because it can create its own industry, and because of Smith Moon, you're able to create a government closure that happens in broad daylight, but a corporation that steps in and acts as a sort of almost like an exterior parking lot to another kind of government that's growing. And so in my mind, I don't see any legitimacy at all in Biden or Trump, only from the sense of like our country is open and everything like exists as we think it is. In my mind, when we look back at all history, like literally all history, it usually takes 10, 30, 60 years for the people that live under a regime to actually notice that something has changed, to actually realize that we're underneath a different flag now. And over time, what we call government has just gotten better at managing people's expectations. And because it's gotten better, things happen a lot more smoothly, even though it looks like chaos. It really is engineered chaos in order to create distractions, which really just, reroute traffic for a while. So you bring in a new monument and things like that. So in my mind, I don't really invest a lot of time in any kind of political discussion because I don't think that that actually is true in any way. I think it's more about this fourth and fifth arm of government I see is formed on the outer shells of what we think is legit. And so that fourth and fifth arm is the Department of Health, and the other arm is the Department of Green Energy or something like that. It doesn't matter what they're called. But the reason why all of our social programs have been engineered around healthcare and or clean environment has been precisely because that's what's needed to create the next level of governmental sort of management and control. So you're looking at a facade regime that's purposely collapsing on its own retardedness, on its own ability to just create its own obsolescence. So you're watching leaders fail on purpose. It's not just us. This is happening in France. This is happening all over the place. But they're creating their own obsolescence as hard as they can so that no one would complain that that would die, that that would go away. In fact, it would be encouraged. And honestly, I just see a brilliant orchestra. I hate to give them props, but I really, truly do see the brilliance of how this system operates above the system that pretends to fall. In my mind, it's such a cutting edge, well thought out, advanced way of massive control that when I look at the force behind that versus the force behind, say, the truth movement that really just bickers and cannibalizes itself most of the time over really stupid topics like abortion or gun stocks and I'm not saying these things aren't important, but it's just so clearly manipulated. It's so clearly inserted. And so I feel that we really show a deep respect towards each other by giving that so much attention versus trying to really focus on how DPA was able to truly pull this off, how it happened in front of all of us, how the Great Seal went down for like 5 days, how Trump came out and never actually wore an official presidential uniform. He had a hat that said USA. And in my mind, this is more about like Admiralty colors and the showing of like the changing of the guard. All of these things you could totally say is like, James, you're just paranoid. I'm used to that. It's okay. But I truly do think that this is just a deeper way of understanding what's happening in the world. And I don't expect the masses in any way, shape, or form to ever take me seriously or consider that I have a really valid view, despite the fact that I really think I do.
They're using a lot of esoteric symbolism for sure. And then they get people with this, like the old Q movement, and they get people stuck in all these psyops. And there's still people that believe that the good guys are in control and we don't have to worry about anything. And what's their thing? I still see people posting about there's a new the financial system. New quantum financial system is going to take everybody out of debt, and we don't have to worry about anything ever again because the good guys, the white hats, are in control.
Well, there is some good news. Yeah. I mean, so there really is. First of all,
I think they're using the esoteric symbolism to manipulate people into believing fairy tales, honestly.
Yeah. So I think that when you look at what the CIA is, it's important to understand it's a multiplex organization where you have what looks like good guys and bad guys in the same room. And it's more about agendas, like what their program is. And when you look at the complex nature of all these programs, shooting their vectors in all these different directions, you understand the CIA is not really a singular entity that has its own goals. And a lot of these things were built in the 80s, right? In the 90s, and secret programs that were able to fester and grow. And so I do see a complexity around the Q movement. I actually could make a case for a certain part of the CIA being so afraid of a global government taking over and eliminating their job as CIA that they would even try to wake up some of the American population in hopes of instilling more sovereignty. Like, I'm just saying, I could see how that would be one part of the CIA. And then there's this other part, which is the military industrial complex, which is just, trying to create the largest job program in the world, can never end, so that's a goal. These are just two examples, Sam. I'm just saying that there's at least a dozen different goals like this. And some are trying to crush you, and some are actually begging you, can you please wake the fuck up? Can you please wake up? And I think that I'm not saying it's an equal footing. Please don't hear me say that. I'm just saying that if you really watch what's happening, you're looking at a multiplex vista of different kinds of trauma programming, but some of them aren't even necessarily just to be bad. Some of them really are just simply people trying to awaken others because of how dangerous it is when everyone keeps behaving like veal, right? When people keep thinking that way.
Since you admit you're not following the news that close, you probably didn't see yesterday at the Trump cabinet meeting, Bobby Kennedy Jr. said, he's now the HHS secretary, right? Mm-hmm. He said at that meeting that the HHS is under the Biden administration. It's obviously still going on. Collaborates with child trafficking. He said that. I thought it was pretty significant and shocking that to hear that coming from a high-ranking government official like that now.
Yeah, and I would normally, there was a time when I would have been really excited about that. But to me, it's such a brilliant kind of piece of furniture to parade in front of everybody that I look at it a lot more like just professional wrestling.
They're all actors, man, right? Look them all up, all these people, and half of them are right from Fox News. They're all literally actors up there.
If you want to get everyone's attention, you're going to have to you go to Twitter, you see what's trending, and then you create a government party around that. And that's really is just
democracy, right?
But politics has always been that way. And I'll tell you one fault that a lot of truthers make is they think that it's them creating the program, when if you actually look at how it works, they have to use what is in the vernacular. And we, the people, want to believe that Epstein feeds the people as a scapegoat excuse. It's a pretend conviction. Hey, look, justice is still served, even if it happens outside of court. Wink, wink. This is a perfect thing to feed the people, right? The bread and circus is that. But when the bread and circus is so meaty, when it's child trafficking, when it's the politicians are evil, when it's Epstein Island has all the billionaires and they're all fucking pedophiles, it allows the average person, the person who's veal, to demonize. It's called a pharmacopoeia, by the way. It's literally one of the oldest rituals that we have, where we pick the ugliest person in town and we blame all our problems on them, and then we banish them.
And then you feel better about yourself, right?
Yeah. So Epstein is the perfect fodder because he has all those traits. He has all those weird things. And when you start to watch the news, you can sort of start to decipher it because you can strip away the propaganda and you're left with just what the story probably really is, which is probably sort of a reverse witness protection program where you have a pervert Epstein in Miami who's been caught just with low level, I mean, total shit bag, but I'm just low level stuff. And you have a few pictures, you set them up with a few things, and then now you have this grand, massive instrument that you can use to send this sense of justice to the people. This is why I think Steve Bannon is really fucking brilliant at how to move the people. And I've pointed out so many of his ops personally that I truly think that he's done. This guy came from Breitbart. He was behind Pizzagate. He was behind the Q movement. He was behind the Hillary's going to jail. He's behind all the things that you've seen, including Epstein.
He knows how to rile up and throw red meat
He
to
does.
the
And this
right-wing
is really who
populace.
runs the system, Sam. This is really who runs the system. I'm not saying Steve Bannon runs it, but if you hear me out,
But a key
Steve
operative.
Bannon brings the attention that his story is able to generate into a sort of a cattle farm, and he sells that to the highest bidder, right? And so this is the media, how the media works. So he raises his calf on his own, he brings it in, and he says, hey, here's Julian Assange, exact same program, exact same instrument. Who gets to tackle onto that is really at the heart of how politics works. And all these things, yes, they're definitely instrumental on a we will start shit, but they really do come down to what the people want to hear, what the people want to see. That base desire has to be a part of every formula, which is why the government, the country itself, is such an interesting vehicle. It runs more on its own appetite, its own addictions, than it does on any, say, leader's specific idea of what's important.
So the social engineer mind controllers know exactly what they're doing. They've been studying human nature for thousands of years here now.
Yeah, I think so. And they're watching the appetite and they have to respond to it. If there's one nuance I want people to get, it's that they have to respond to the appetite of the people. They just have to. And that's why if more people did wake up, it would be the same thing as if you were to cut sugar or salt out of your diet. After a few days, you'd be waking up feeling a lot better, but for the first 2 days you'd be revolting. You'd be missing those vital sugary or salty kind of highs that you get. And really that's why we're veal. This is why I don't use this metaphor lightly. We really are stuck inside that addiction of sugar and sweet and sugar and sweet, and we just lack the capacity to have a longer term look at what's happening and to get out. And personally, I think it's because we don't want to. I think it's because deep down, most people just like it here. They just do. And that's what puts me in a different space about what my duty is in this place. I used to think my duty a few years ago when I wrote Blueprints on Mind Control is we have to wake people up. I just don't believe that anymore, only because I've looked at where most people are. And I don't actually think that's how this system works. I think there's something more profound going on, much more profound. And that's the thing that I've just been dedicating my looking at lately.
Interesting. Let's get into the occult a little bit. These social engineer mind controllers. Today's the big. We just went through the season of sacrifice where we see a lot of major events happen where they're trying to capture energy, use it for control. Let me just blast through quickly here on. And it's the season of sacrifice climaxing on May 1st. We saw in April 19th, 1993, Waco massacre. April 19th, 1995, Oklahoma City bombing. April 20th, 1999, Columbine shooting. April 16th, 2007, Virginia Tech mass shooting. April 16th, 2013, Boston Marathon explosions. April 18th, 2013, fertilizer plant explosion in Texas, killed 15. April 21st, 2016, princess dies on Queen's birthday, alleged ritualistically timed. April 21st, 2019, Colombo City after a terrorist attack, Sri Lanka, Easter bombing. April 28, 2018, Elfie Evans sacrifice ritual. April 19, 2020, mass shooting in Nova Scotia. And May 3rd, 2007, Madeleine McCain reported missing. So all of that to say we reached the climax on May Day here, May 1st, Beltane. There's many different, if you go through the different occult religions, there's many different names for it. Beltane, the pagan religions. What do you think of this? Is it a thing? Do you think it's a thing that people in this world are following this occult rituals?
I think that I think it's a thing. I also think that there's a bigger ritual at play, and it more has to do when we look at culture in a much larger container. There's something interesting about America in the idea of Uncle Sam. This is a red and white striped creature that we have an icon about. It's a gray bearded white dude, and that's fine. But if you look at America before Uncle Sam, there was the same figure was in the soil in the Aztec world. It was a red and white striped figure called Mixcoatl. And he had this idea that he would raise children, and his children would give their hearts in order for the government to grow. That's literally the fucking story. And if at Templo Mayor, there are two houses at the top. There's a blue house. I'm not making any of this up, Sam. There's a blue house on the left. And they worship the god of weather, i.e. global warming. They are worried about floods. They are worried about nature. And they sacrifice the hearts of the red and white Uncle Sam's children in order to protect themselves from global warming. And that's the house on the left. It's a blue house, literally a blue house. On the right, at Templo Mayor, is the god of war and terrorism. Again, I'm not making this up. Huitzilopochtli is his name. They see him as the hummingbird. And this house on the right, they bring these children of Mixcoatl, Uncle Sam, up, and they sacrifice their hearts to defend their land from terrorism. So this is the Republicans and the Democrats. There's something about this place that has, I personally just say it's in the soil. You don't have to believe me, but the salts in the soil sort of activate a genetic kind of pattern in us where we have certain draws in Louisiana or certain Southern draws in the South. And, all of us speak in different ways, just like beer tastes different in different places. So too does politics run differently on a larger scale. So when I start to look at all the mythos in the past, all the mythology, and I start to notice that it's here in the politics today, it informs me about what is like active, ritualistic, conscious things that people are maybe doing in the shadowy background versus what is this much larger mythos that's activating through the land that's causing all these people, literally 100+ million voters are literally showing up and saying, yeah, there's one of two candidates is fair and all these people are going to die. And it depends on who we decide which house we're going to sacrifice all of our own children to. And we pay this taxes. And this is just the Aztec world. We are the Aztecs. And just like they didn't see what they don't do, nor do we see what we do. And so in my mind, it blows me away because it's so much bigger than politics. I'm talking about cosmology now. I'm talking about what the fuck is reality itself? Because to me, I see a fractal that keeps repeating and repeating and harmonizing. And so I just can't help but look at that. And I don't know what it means. I'm not here to tell you this is what's happening. I'm here to tell you this is what I see. And it's really, really interesting.
I think we're all trying to figure out what is going on and what's driving this whole train here. So yeah, all these secret societies, are they? Well, obviously they're, like you say, they're lining up. They're able to convince at least around 100 million people that you vote for your blue team, your red team, and that's going to actually make a difference in your life for American democracy. But yet we're in never-ending wars, and it just where's the anti-war movement? How about that question?
Yeah. And
Was there ever an anti-war movement in this country? I don't know.
No. I mean, there's an anti-society movement in this country. There's an anti-government. But honestly, if you really break down war, God, that sounds so horrible. But I think everyone wants war. They want it less now. In World War I, we're like, hey, Archduke Ferdinand's dead. And now like 35 million people were convinced I'm going to go to a field and shoot someone that's not wearing the same color shirt as I am. And we insist, oh, well, they had to do that. I don't think they had to do that. I think those people literally wanted to go kill each other. And yeah, I'm talking shit about veterans, but I'm a veteran. I only know this because I've been around veterans. That's the only reason why I know this. It's the only reason. It's because I've looked at my fellow man with unbridled eyes. I've just seen inside the soul of what makes us tick. And what makes us tick is that we like to have war. We like to have the option of making every single thing come down to, would we go to war? Would we shoot someone else? Will we live? Will we survive? It's this visceral experience that makes us feel alive. The problem is that we bred it out of us. It's not even a problem, but World War I, everyone showed up. World War II, not as many, but still a lot. Ever since then, we really can't pull off how do we convince millions of people to show up in a field and shoot each other? Gettysburg, when they pulled the rifles out of the ground, even in Gettysburg, 80% of them were still loaded. Still loaded. These are not tendencies of what we have been told is a super violent culture that's desperate to kill each other. These are tendencies of people that are just looking for a conscious human experience inside of a experimental salt tank that has some sort of weird conscious ability to allow us to simulate each other, to have an experience where all of us are living in a singular chemistry, but able to, I believe, hallucinate a very different reality from each other. And that's just what we call our own world, our own life. So I think I'm probably too out there maybe for you, Sam, but I don't even know what reality is.
I like it. You're being honest, and that's fair, man.
It's more of a liquid court of existence. And what I mean by that is that even when I look at the people that do not see government in the same light that I do, I'm looking at someone that I would used to say is in denial, and they're blind, and they're a sheep, and their eyes are closed. And now I see it as they're able to render a reality that's different than mine. They're living on the same street. They're following the same rules, but they have a completely different makeup about who the good guys are. They think there are good guys. They think there are bad guys. Even I have been questioning, even if there are bad guys. It's weird, I know, but you have to first let go of good guys. Then when you let go of good guys, only then can you start to say, there's really no bad guys either. And what I mean is because I can just look at a human. They have certain organs inside, and those organs are going to dump certain receptors for dopamine that are going to make the body feel good if certain things are just in place. If they feel a certain kind of transaction in the world, they're going to feel good. If they don't, they're going to feel bad. This makes it a lot easier in my mind to navigate this nature, this pure anarchistic jungle that you and I have claimed is not a jungle, and we've been pretending and simulating that there's actually a government entity that's doing something that is not predatory. See, that to me is the fantasy that we have. If we accept that we're just living in nature, we've never been protected, we've never had any kind of safety net at all, then we can see government for what it is. It's a predator, and it's the predator that we choose. We choose this predator because it allows us to relax enough to digest food. It's just how the body works. The body cannot digest food unless it feels a certain sense of safety. If you can't have safety in nature, and you can't, you have to lie to yourself about it. If you lie to yourself about having safety in nature, you can digest food, you can reproduce, you can have kids, and you just invented a life that requires you to lie to yourself in order to propagate, survive, and proliferate. Right. So this means that we need lies to live. We need lies to survive inside of nature. And that's why I think government is just saturated with lies. It's wrapped in more lies than you can ever find, because ultimately, this is a part of the tool of who we are. Your frontal lobe lies to you the same way your placebo lies to you to make you heal. The same energy is coming from the same place. So in my mind, lying is almost like another finger, another appendage that we are discovering about ourselves. But instead, we're living in this church where we think no one's supposed to be lying. So we're kind of like pushing away from the very gift we're supposed to be leaning into, which is more of a fantasy-based kind of life. But we don't live in a world that's going to be comfortable with that. So we're walking around going, everything's rigid. There's concrete. This is a stoplight. These are rules. And it takes all that away and makes it easier to sleep at night.
Let's talk about this book that you've written. It's not what people think. It's sci-fi. It's not let's first talk about what the name of your book, Black Eye Club.
Yes.
And you see all these quote elite, whatever they are, high up people on the world stage. They all have this thing. I'm sure you've seen the memes out there where they compile a bunch of them, and all of them have this have a real black eye, right? Like they got punched in the eye.
Yep.
And it feels like this is some type of ritual in a secret society they're all part of. What do you make of this?
Yeah, this is actually what started me writing this book. Is I wanted to know why they had all those. I imagined what it was like, and I found it unbelievable to picture that they were purposely getting punched somehow. I think that the way our reflexes work, that would be impossible. So I don't think they're being punched. And I started to wonder, what would you want to do to someone's eye that would cause it to bruise? Because there's a lot of ocular procedures that cause a black eye. And I thought that seemed more believable, that there could be a secret group that is doing something to their eye. And it led me to study anatomy, and I was blown away because your eyes have afferent and efferent nerves that connect to them. What this means is that your eyes don't just send information from what they gather into your brain, they actually receive information from your brain too. So it's a two-way street. It's not a one-way street. And if you look this up, you can look up afferent and efferent nerves in the eyes. You will find what I'm telling you now, which is that we do not know why the eyes would need information from the brain. And when I noticed this, I was like, this is fascinating. So I just dove in deeper. And it turns out there's a really interesting story here. It's so interesting that I've written a nonfiction book about the science, but now I've taken it further and I've written a fiction book about it too. So I could show how this reality of how the eyes work in two different ways. And Sam, this is why I look at politics this way. Honestly, it's because of what I see in the anatomy of things. There's a retinal wall, a Plato's cave on the back of your eye where shadows are broadcast from the world, and that this retinal wall has what's called melanocytes all over it. These are receptors that basically squirt black ink, melanin, and this black ink absorbs light. This is how we've always thought, this is how we detect light in the room, whether the sun's up and things like that. And certainly all that is still true. However, melanocytes actually absorb electrical information. They're tiny circuits. And we have melanocytes inside of our ears where the sun doesn't shine. We have these inside of our nose where the sun doesn't shine. Everywhere we take input through our pores, through our skin, we have melanocytes. And I believe that melanocytes are used as a kind of shock mechanism to prevent the body from going into freeze response when it undergoes a shock. If you see something super terrifying, the reason why you as a human do not freeze is because of the amygdala. And the amygdala tells your body to secrete more melanin so you will forget, i.e., not see what is happening in your world. All of this I've just told you is just true science. It's just science. If you want to talk about the Black Eye Club, we have to speculate. And what I've speculated is you could give a shot to somebody that instills temporary albinism. Albinism is the inability to secrete melanin. And if you have no ability to secrete melanin, your eyes would be wide open. You would be able to see all light, which means even if something was fearful, you would not be able to block that out. And that there could be, maybe the Black Eye Club is people that are taking a serum that allows them to see things that are hard for other people to see. This could be demons. This could
entities. That's what I was going to say. Entities that are outside our realm of perception, possibly.
Yes. And that because of this failure, this temporary albinism, it's just basically installing that into the mind, so the mind is unable to hide or blur those things out of its mental state. And they're able to basically have an advantage because, in my opinion, they'd be able to see auric smell. Auric smell is, I'm just trying to tell you the word for chemo signals, pheromones. The ability to see smell in the air, I believe, is purposely held back from our nose by us, by the way, so that we can participate in society. I'm not kidding. The baby has a full olfactory before it's born. As soon as it's born, the olfactory system starts to decay very rapidly within 8 or 9 months. This decay is necessary for the baby to fit in society and be able to, as I said before, digest food. If they saw everything clearly, they would know that the average person is a dangerous animal. If they do not see things clearly, they would be able to believe that this is Joe and he works at TGI Fridays and he's bringing me chicken nuggets. So in order to feel more comfortable, we as a creature needed to learn to lie to be social. And this social lying is why all of us have sheep all over when it comes to seeing the way the population runs. But it's also why someone would be very interested in removing that kind of blindness and to see the world in its ultimate clarity. And this is how the albino sees it. In Africa, these are called shaman. People with albinism have always been considered to have a special gift. This gift tends to make them crazy. I think that's because it's a social disease. If you're not surrounded by people that see the same depth of field as you do, you start to go crazy because you don't have someone to re-emphasize your reality for you. And this is why it's so much harder for us as a culture.
You're not going there. You're not going there now, James, right?
I don't think so. I could be. I could be. But I don't know, because you see, it really is ultimately vitriol rips these eyes open. The seeing things painful is a way of seeing more. And I think Benjamin Netanyahu has this natural kind of vision. In other words, these world leaders that are just real pieces of shit, one of the reasons why they're so much better is because they don't have to lie to themselves as much about what's in the room. Do you understand? They know what it's like to see, i.e., smell a psychopath. They're not at the level of sheep that's like, I don't even want to believe psychopaths are there. They're more like, dude, I know psychopaths are here. I'm fucking one of them. And so they're just going to know a lot more. It's kind of like street smarts with like a criminal, but I just need you to multiply it times like 1,000,000 and just realize that it works on perception too.
That's a lot to wrap our mind around. Let's get to your book here. Let me pull it up here on Amazon. What's the best place for people to buy your book, James?
Yeah, Amazon's great. Yeah, it's actually just going through a massive rewrite right now. I've finally been able to put an editor at work to help me with this, and I'm really excited about the rewrite that's coming out. But yeah, this is a sci-fi book that's talking about the things that I was just telling you about, which is I like to call it the first eye. It's the idea that there's a perceptive ability to see things before your neocortex starts to tell you what you see. So there's a perception before perception, and that the perception before perception doesn't lie to you. And if you can remember that part, what you saw first, you would be seeing through your first eye, which is why I call it that. Not to mention your pineal itself could actually be its own receptive agent. There's really a lot about the way the body works that doesn't even necessarily prove that we would have to be able to see with our eyes exclusively. I know this sounds like a
James,
crazy.
what do you make? What do you make of the big push right now to take fluoride out of the public drinking water supplies? It's been banned in Utah, and almost it will be banned in Florida. It's being reported. Will that help decalcify the pineal gland by removing fluoride from the public drinking water supply? What do you make of this development in public health?
I think it's a bread and circus thing. I think that there's over 5,000 toxins, neurotoxins, that have been identified in the world, and fluoride is one of them. I don't think that this means you should just drink all toxins. But I do think that the ultimate, if someone was really giving a shit about their water supply, they'd be talking to you about pharmaceutical leaching, which is a much bigger problem. There's no way to filter out the molecules at that level that pharmaceuticals are. So every single person that lives in a municipal water supply is taking the exact same medications of every single person that's ever had a pee or taken a shower or washed their hands in the same water supply. And until you find a government that's telling people about the leaching of pharmaceuticals, you are being lied to and you're being fooled. It's very sad to watch people be so adamant about what a victory fluoride is. However, I do understand that people need victories in their lives, which is why I stay out of politics, because people will just rip me apart.
We can't be that black pilled, James.
I know. This is why I don't talk about it, because I never make anyone happy. And I think the world.
No, it's true. Like you say, though, it's the pharmaceutical runoff, the pesticides from agriculture, and on 1,000 different toxins. So everybody should filter their water for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So and I don't even think the world's broken. That's why a lot of people don't really get me anymore. I've seen the meta machine that runs this place. And so I get why there needs to be this idea that we have to save the fluoride. I get that. I understand why it's important. I also think that if we had more self-respect, we wouldn't listen to this shit and go, oh, this is going to save us. We'd see through it instantly, and they would have to raise the bar. The more we woke up, the higher they'd have to raise the bar. The higher they have to raise the bar, the better they treat us. Just by extension, they wouldn't have a choice. So that's why I try not to talk about fluoride, because everyone hates me for when I say that. It's a good thing to say, yeah, it's a win for our side. Like, it'd be a great thing to say that. And I can't say that because I don't think that's true. I don't actually think that's how it works. Plus, when you're drinking water, see, when you drink something, you don't actually put it in your body. You pass it through basically a membrane. Basically, it's just a giant genital. Your esophagus can choose to drink, it can choose to absorb those things, or it can choose not to. So even that kind of exposure to fluoride, I think, is petty in comparison to other things that we're doing to ourselves. One of which is just the regular food we eat. So to me, it's just kind of like, it's such a plot device. It's such a sad, pathetic plot device. And I wish I could be more like, yay about it. I really do, but I'm not there. It's why
I'm going to send you an American flag, James.
Yep.
Where did you get the idea for? I get the Black Eye Club, but all of the books I know about anyway that I've seen the cover all have this eye symbology. What is inspiring you to put this eye symbology on your covers of your books?
I only have 2 books that have the eye symbology, and I apologize.
For some reason, those are the ones I'm drawn to.
Yeah, and I guess because I just read a lot about what I see versus what other people see versus what's popular to see. versus what's not popular to see. This is really what's led me to the work about the aperture and the dilation stuff all the time. It's I think it's a fundamental to our life. I think chemtrails are part of this, that certain people are going to render certain truths about their world in ways at different levels of accuracy in order to accept or swallow the truth of what's happening. And that's mostly how we see all things in our life. The things that we worry about tend to be things that we don't actually worry about, but they're good facades to hide other things that we're deeply worried about. The same thing with our joys too, the same things with our successes. Most of us are slaves, but we're embarrassed to be slaves, which means that we have to wander around outside and put a 45-minute sort of parade into how we don't want to be slaves anymore before we go back in and be a slave the rest of the time. And ultimately, I think that's what's happening. So it's a lot of like self-flogging kind of flatulational sort of public displays of we have to wake up, but really also coming home and saying there ought to be a law every time that something happens they don't like, you know?
There ought to be a law.
Yeah, there ought to be a lawagans are the people that are really causing just as much trouble. You know, if you want to really add up who's causing the most trouble, is it the skull fucking Luciferians, or is it that there ought to be a lawagans? You know, because to me, it's the majoritarian is what's screwing it up. Fascism itself is the idea that there can only be one idea, and anyone who disagrees is clearly wrong. To me, this is what's wrong with our world. It's not right or it's not left. It's
the quote elite controllers wouldn't have any power if order followers didn't do what they said and enforce their laws upon the society.
And also if people would accept that reality doesn't have to be quite so objective as we insist it to be, that's another biggie. Because if we insist that all has to be objective, that's really what fuels the idea of fascism to spread, that fuels, well, clearly you're wrong. Because you have an idea that there's one singular rightness. There's this quickening, kind of like in that movie Highlander, where everyone has to agree. And so you end up creating all these laws that create more laws that create more laws, because it's just someone ought to do something. That's why we have 3 to 5 new laws. I think it's either every week or every day.
Isn't it? There was an old report by John Stossel that said every day you walk out your front door, you're breaking at least 3 federal laws that you don't even know.
Yeah. But even as we're talking, no matter which person's in office, there's still the same new laws, number of laws that are being built every month or every week and every day. And I'm just saying that I tried to count how many laws we have, and I couldn't do it. That you cannot find all the codified books are built on top of each other. It's an endless bureaucratic pit of statutes that are sometimes laws and then laws that are sometimes statutes. And so it ends up there's no way to even have a total page count. This is why I think it's really crucial that we stop pretending this is valid, that we stop insisting that there's one sheet of paper that says this is all right. Literally every single Bill of Rights does say that it was ratified. Ratified means that this can change at any time. Ratified means that we agree that this could be changed at any time, and it has. It has and it will, because Article 1, Section 9 has always given the government the ability to suspend habeas corpus under the threat of public safety. This word is such a broad term, you could literally put any single object in the world under that tent and rule everyone inside of it. And until just basic understandings of being a lawyer, for example, would just look at this one clause, and I admit it took me 30, 40 years to see it myself. Once you see that clause, you realize this has never been real. This has never been a system that's ever been in place for me because of this singular clause. If this truly was true, you would see the largest collection of Supreme Court cases based around the definition of public safety. It would be an endless battle, an endless war, and it's not. The same way there's never been a scandal in the Electoral College. Do you know why? Because it's bullshit. That's why. That's why there's no photo in a briefcase. There's no naked prostitute caught dead at the end of a sewer with the Electoral College person. It's never that. It's never anything, because if you were to fuck with the sanctity of the Holy Ghost of the Electoral College, you would not have a country anymore. That's why I know it's fake. That's why I know it's fake on purpose. That's why I know it's professional wrestling, and these people care because they really want to do a good job. I swear they fucking care. They want to make this look as real as possible, and they do, because the ones that do are the ones that keep staying in Washington. They get to stay because they get to say, it's a bump stock. We got to save the world from the bump stocks. And once you can set that pace and people start to follow it, you realize it's just cowboys and Indians here. You're just watching people that are saying, hey, let's corral around this. And whoever can make people corral, those are the politicians. Those are the ones that win. So it's always that. So when I look at Ron Paul, and he's been saying this shit for 30 years, and I used to love the guy. And I'm like, dude, why are you paying taxes? Why the fuck are you paying taxes? Why are you not every single day saying, hi, I'm Ron Paul, I'm not paying taxes because of X, 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 X. And he won't say that because that's not what's happening around us. It's not real. It's wrestling. These are chairs being thrown match after match. And no one shows up and say, hey, shouldn't you stop throwing chairs?
James, we literally have Linda McMahon, the former CEO of WWF Wrestling, at the head of the Department of Education. They're telling us, right? They're telling us, will people be able to see what they're telling us? Because they're literally have removed the veil, and you got a top wrestling executive leading the education department in this country.
Yeah. It's not. Why are we pretending it's real? Why?
Well, they're showing us. I mean,
yeah. And all it takes is there's a training in the public library. That's all it takes.
And then everybody goes that way.
And then people are instantly, we have to vote harder. We have to pass more laws. We have to vote harder. And the whole time I'm like, why did you think you can leave your kid in a fucking library while you went to Target? Why is that not on you? Guys, this is the jungle. There are lions and tigers and trannies too, and they will step out and eat your fucking children. Why is this so hard to believe? Why are we walking around pretending that, like, oh, we have neighborhoods and I can make it where no one knocks on my door? You live in the fucking woods. You live in nature. You can't have a world where you insist no one's going to knock on your door, and if they do, the cops are going to. You can try, but that's a world that is never going to work long term. It's not. So if we stop insisting that government can do something, or someone should do something, or that they're going to fix this, and we're just like, hey, don't leave your fucking kids at a library when you go to Target. Or if you want to stop human trafficking, stop putting your kids inside of a yellow shipping container with wheels and sending it off to a government facility for 8 hours a day, and then getting mad because they come home brainwashed. What the fuck did you think was going to happen to your kids while they were there? What did you think? And we're mad at the government because, well, how dare they do that to? How dare you?
They're doing their job, right? They're just doing their job, but we should be aware that that is their job and work around the system with the little tools that they give us.
Yeah, this is why I'm horrible. I shouldn't be on the air. I
love it. We need more James True attitude in everybody. How do we beam your attitude into the majority out there?
I'm self-annihilating. Yeah, it doesn't work. And society is built this way. It knows how this works. See, that's why no one's afraid of me. No one in the CIA is like, oh God, James True's going to expose us. Everyone in the CIA is laughing because they're like, James True knows, and there's not a fucking thing he can do about it. This is hilarious. That's what I think happens. I think that they watch some of us who get it, and they're just like, oh, poor little bird. Look at him stuck inside the giant mega complex, you know. And all you can do is wait for someone to open like some bird seed, which is what I do, you know, and I cut it with a knife so no one can watch me because I know there's birds stuck up in the rafters and I want them to have something to eat. So it's like I'm not really stealing, but I am because I'm cutting open these bird seeds. It's like that. That's who I am.
Have intelligence agencies ever tried to recruit you? You said you were in the military.
If I told you that, then I'd be Sam, I can't tell you that. Like, even if it's true, I couldn't tell you. And if it's false, I couldn't tell you because then you wouldn't believe me. So why pretend, you know?
Well, you said you worked for the government.
Well, I was in the Navy. I had a secret rating. There's certain things I'm definitely not allowed to say. And I just tell you that because I have to be authentic. That's literally what happened. I'll also tell you that I think the things that I know are kind of stupid. I don't think they're that important. But they told me when they told me this, hey, we're going to tell you these things. And if you tell anyone, you're going to fucking go to jail. And so I'm like, okay, I won't fucking tell anyone, even though all this shit's in the book called The Hunt for Red October. They're like, don't you say that either. I'm like, well, but it is. Why? They're like, you're going to jail. I'm like, I know. This is why I'm not in the Navy anymore. So I'm an independent clown. I'm a Heyoka clown of the nth degree. I come from a shamanistic universe that's just outside the curtain of what you call real. That's probably what it is. I'm not even doing drugs. I'm like,
we got Karen. We got Karen saying in the Rumble chat, we're loving James.
Thank you, Karen. Appreciate it. Yeah, you guys shouldn't listen to me. I will bring this country down. You do not want to listen to me. But if you can get back to nature and understanding we're just living in the jungle, you're gonna have a good time, man. We're gonna have more drum circles. Look, some of your kids are gonna get eaten. Okay, it's gonna fucking happen. All right, but I'll tell you, it's always gonna be the dumb parents. It's always gonna be the parents that are just like, I'm going to Target. I'm sure my kid will be fine here. If you let kids get eaten like that, if you let them do that for a few generations, society improves instantly. It gets instantly better because people have to just be more fucking autonomous. They have to show more sovereignty. They have to watch their own stuff. This really helps, but we cannot endure the cruelty. We call it cruelty because we want to stay like veal. We call it cruelty because we want to cut the chains off the baby cows and make them fucking do some exercises, make them do jumping jacks for a while, try and get their muscles out of atrophy. But we say that's too cruel because we can't have a world where you have to work, where we have to be careful, where we have to be honest about the fact that it's a jungle, because it's a jungle. So,
James, so let's take our commercial break right now. We'll plug your stuff. Let me plug my stuff. Everybody go to Weaponized News and get yourself some stickers. Got the holograph sticker here. We got the white background, and we also have the clear background. You can put it on your laptop, your guitar, your bumper. Help spread the word about Weaponized News and represent the camera here. It's a camera, and you can trigger your anti self-defense people too, because they'll think it's a gun, and you can say, no, what are you, paranoid about guns? This is a camera, you know what I mean? And so you could use it for trolling as well. It's a very good tool out there in the information war that we're in. What you want to plug your book? What do you want to plug here, James? Go to your Patreon, right?
I do a live stream. I haven't been doing one because I've been writing a book lately. So if anyone, I appreciate, one of the reasons why I love that we're talking right now is because I haven't been online in a long time. And so, but yeah, I try and do a show when I can. We have a patron group. We have this thing called Airship, which is a dojo kind of a situation where people come and we sit in a room and we really talk about like what the fuck's going on. And we try and catch each other in postures that could be improved. That like the way that you see the world is ultimately responsible for how much calories you have generated by living in it. And if you change your posture about a few certain things, one of which is that the world is broken, that you start to have a lot more calories at your disposal, and it just allows you to navigate the world more. That's all. It's purely, strictly a selfish, motivated thing for how you gain more calories on the mat. I call this world a mat because you're surrounded by lies, you're surrounded by deceit, and I want you to enjoy your place here. So if you look at it sort of like a karate kind of a situation, like you're on the mat, then the world just gets more fun. So we started a channel called Dojo Earth. You can watch just those collective conversations. We've been having a lot of fun with that too. And all those would be found on my Patreon page, which is right there on the screen, patreon.com/JamesTrue. Yeah, that's my name. I didn't pick it, but there it is. And I'm going.
That's your real name. That's not your secret agent name.
It's not. I can't give out my secret agent name, but it starts with Denver. I'll just say that I just made that up. I don't know what Denver means.
We have a guy, Denver, in the chat. Usually joins the show.
Oh wow! What do you know? There you
go.
Yeah,
there he is, Denver Attaway, in the chat.
Yeah, there's my channel there, and yeah, I like to say this is the best apocalypse ever, meaning that we've been going through a lot of cataclysms, a lot of them, and that this is probably the best cataclysm ever. I personally think that there's probably some sort of simulational kind of
Well, people are going to see
Operation
James. They're going to see right off the bat. Why are you throwing up Illuminati gang signs right there with the all-seeing eye and
Yeah.
yeah.
I embrace these things as part of what I talk about in dojo. I think that you can actually start to hone in on the things that used to scare you, and that if you hone in on the things that used to scare you and embrace them, you end up becoming more powerful than you were before. This is actually exactly why I embrace that eye thing. Also, I recommend doing that with
Say that's proof you're in the Illuminati, James.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I am in the Illuminati because I want, if you look at the symbology of what it means to illuminate, yes, I really want people to see more. I really do. People will say, but it's false light. And my response to that is, if you're in a cave, any kind of light, I don't care if it's red light, yellow light, blue light, green light, I don't fucking give a shit. It's going to help you more than if you're in the darkness. And so when you look at what the Venus means, it literally, this Luciferian symbol of the planet in the sky, I think it means people that are terrified of leaving the darkness will demonize those who do. So when you understand the world, we demonize people that want to bring you out of the cave. So the Illuminati are demonized by the people that want to stay asleep. I swear that's what I think is happening. I realize this is another reason why I'm not popular, because now I'm like pro-Illuminati. But I believe that we hermetically wake up one day and discover that we are in a secret society because we're able to see the conspiracies all around us. That the moment you recognize the conspiracies, you actually enter into a secret hermetic order of the ones who see. And if we were to come up with a name for the ones who see, it would probably be the Illuminati, which is why I'm thinking that we actually are the Illuminati. You're just waiting for people to stop fearing this idea and slowly come to it individually on their own in a personal way. And I just happen to have gotten there first, I think, or early, I should say.
Patreon.com/James True right there for all things James True. Very very interesting here, James. Let's continue with well, here's some symbolism. Let's play on this day of May 1st, continuing with the theme of on May 1st, 1945, one day after Germany fell, Red Army soldiers staged an iconic moment of raising the Soviet flag over the Reichstag. Let's watch this short clip. It's only 15 seconds, and then we'll get your take on what this symbolism means. No audio, obviously. But this is the Soviet Army, again, raising the red flag over Germany's Reichstag after defeating Germany in World War II. What do we make of this symbolism, James?
Wow, that's really deep, because it makes me think about what communism actually is versus kind of how I used to see it, you know? What do you think it means?
I don't know. The guys with the red flag put their flag over the guys with the red flag with the white circle and the swastika in the center of it.
Yeah.
To me, they're the same. They're both tyrannical ideologies, oppressing the people.
If your ego, so if you
both actually, when we're talking about both Soviets and Nazis are funded by Western bankers, so everybody should know that. As we, America, acted like the good guys, but actually the guys in America, Rockefellers and others, Central Bank Cartel, actually funded the whole damn thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, I definitely think there's a lot to that for sure. Like I said, Mixcoatl, his job is to raise children that have to have their hearts destroyed, that feed the country of America. And America's largest employer has always been the Defense Department. There's never been anyone else that's ever been second. Never, ever. And we're living underneath the Defense Department run country, and we're pretending that we're going to get peace. We just have to vote hard. And every 1.7 years since World War II, we've invaded a foreign nation. Every 1.7 years. So it's not broken. It's working exactly the way it is. And we're complacent. We are the ones that are guilty the most because we're living here. This is a part of why I think the entire system is invalid. But communism, And I think you're gonna fucking hate this, but if you think about what it's like to raise consciousness, like an ego is a certain thing. It's a person that has enough pride, enough reputation to want to protect its reputation. It's kind of cool. It's cool that there are plants, moving mobile humans that protect their reputation. They have pride, they have things like that. And if you were raising humans from a beast of burden state, slavery, we say how evil slavery is, but a lot of slaves were purposely buried with their master, and we would say it's because that's how cruel the master is. But honestly, I swear to fuck, if you look back at the literature, what people say, a lot of it was this was considered mercy, that the slaves were not able to survive without their master. When you start to understand that half of Rome was built on slaves, it was an upwardly mobile culture, that when Caesar goes to the Gauls and captures 1,000,000 slaves and says, come back with me, and they just freely do, that you're starting to understand that slavery is not exactly what we think. And this is what gets me to communism. Before the ego is ripe in the soul, you're going to need a country like communism to allow the equitable beast of burden state of the mind to get to fester enough to where it's healthy, and then it can come through. So when I look at China and Russia, I see a different model at work because it's a different sort of organ. The world is kind of like a giant human body in the sense that different organs just require a little bit different things to survive and thrive. They have different needs and whatnot. And each of these organs are growing these cells, these white blood cells, these red blood cells, these humans, so to speak. And these humans have certain characteristics. And one of them is sentience, the ability to be conscious. And before you're fully conscious, you're going to be communistic. Before you're fully conscious, you're going to be democratic. Before you're Republican, you're going to be democratic. It's true. Before you really start to look at the world in more of a Republican way, you're going to be all super soft liberal and everything's perfect and stuff. And then you start to see through and you realize you can't have everything perfect. People need to be forced to kind of live on their own. Then you start to think in terms of, I don't want to be liberal or conservative. I want to be independent. And I just told you was the rising of consciousness that's rising inside the body of man, that your first state is a liberal state. Before liberal, there's communistic. Before communistic, I swear there's slave. You're just thinking in terms of I'm a slave, I'm a serf. So in my mind, all of these systems are valid because they're giving a stair step, a trellis of consciousness that can slowly rise up. Certain people don't want to be that conscious. They've had epigenetic pain. They've witnessed trauma. They've been lied to too much. They want to return to a state of being a slave, but we don't have a society that allows that in a public way. So we have to invent defeat. We have to invent things where we slaughter ourselves by doing something wrong. We have all this other architecture in place to allow our psyches to move up or down the ladder of consciousness based on what's comfortable to us. So capitalism itself is just showing you the upper realms of the ladder, that you can have people that are a lot richer, just like you can have people that are a lot more conscious. So what's beyond that is something I call the beyonder. It's sort of a mental state that you get in where you stop looking at politics, you stop looking at countries as real, and you just look at pure, raw human consciousness living on a vine in a natural greenhouse called Earth. That ultimately that's what I see happening, that all of us are allowed to bloom just at different levels on the trellis. So when I look at communism now, I have a much more accepting view of it because I just see it as part of this larger garden.
Isn't it the boogeyman out there to keep the Department of Defense, Department of War? We need that boogeyman out there to keep on keep the war going, right?
Yeah. And your brain works the same way. You create certain lies, believe it or not. Your thalamus, believe it or not, tells every organ that it doesn't have enough dopamine, even though it does. It literally throttles it back and keeps it. And it does that to create a manipulative economy, an economic state, just like our economy works. And so different things have to compete for the thalamus. And because the thalamus is lying, these organs have to compete too. They literally lie to the thalamus and they say, I just saved you from this giant fucking boulder. It was going to kill you, but I saved you. And so the whole world is running this micro propaganda kind of system inside the brain, the exact same way that our politics are working too. It's the same way one of us wants to get a $13 million settlement because we drank hot coffee from a McDonald's drive-through. It's the exact same way. This is why when I look at all the lies in the world, not just from our government, but even from the people, the way we lie to each other, the way we cheat on each other, our infidelity is off the charts. I mean, we're just so shitty to each other. And I think ultimately it's not broken because you're looking at a system that needs propaganda. Because if you remember what I touched on earlier about lying, that in order for us to be social, we have to lie. And because we have to lie to be social, propaganda is just going to be a natural thing that would just naturally come up. And it turns out this same system, the same prana economy is what I call it, is inside the body too. That there's actual dopamine gambling that's taking place on a transmitter level because your body's trying to work more with less. It's trying to leverage more with less. And this is how every world economy works today too.
Wow, some deep understanding. Here's another video, some more symbolism here for you, James. Let's see what
let's do it.
Let's get your analysis of this.
Go ahead.
Chinese jets and join the Egyptian Air Force as they fly over the pyramids in Giza. Take a look at this short clip.
That's cool.
What do you make of that symbolism?
I just think it's really cool. Yeah, I just think it's really cool, honestly. What do you think?
I don't know. Well, geopolitically, China and Egypt are showing unity by doing this flyover of the pyramids and symbolizing strength and power with these powerful jet fighter planes, maybe signaling to Israel as well. There with China, the big dog with Egypt right there, constantly threatened by whatever they're doing there in Israel. So I think there's a lot of different messages being sent and received.
Do you think countries are like real? Like,
I think on one level, I think at the end of the day, all these world leaders are in the club and they all sit back and laugh. But at one level, it is real because they convince, like you say, a bunch of people to go out and shoot each other in a field. And so on that level, it is real. But as far as actually vying for who's going to be the world superpower, like I said, I believe they're all in the same club at the end of the day.
See, that's where I'm at. Yeah. So there's really is no like struggle for world power, is my opinion. And it really more comes down to it's just a lot of fucking work to like control
to keep the whole wrestling match going.
There's no freedom. If you were truly a powerful person, you would want to have more free time. So when I look at Biden or even Trump, if you look at someone that literally every moment of their day is seen on camera in some way, that's not a person that has a lot of power, in my opinion, even though we think exactly the opposite. So in my mind, the power brokers are the ones behind the scenes, and everyone who's forced to be out pretending to do stuff is not. And so when I look at this system too, I see it as, here's the King of France and the King of England. And they noticed one day over lunch, oh my God, you and I have more in common than I do with my own people. And that our people will only fear and help us if they are afraid of you. And so you have a mutually beneficial relationship that in my mind means that world peace would be the only way that countries could operate, because they would need each other so importantly in this regard that they would have to, as long as they can manufacture the idea of a wrestling match, this is really all they need to secure power. So that's why when I look at everything that's happening, I just see the manufacturing of the wrestling match, which is why the temple rock is so important. It's such a important kind of furniture in the game. It's the ultimate chair in wrestling that you can throw. And so you're always going to be looking at certain props that really work well. Just the fact that China is already a beautiful prop. And pretending that we're in a tariff war with them would be the perfect way just to completely demonetize the entire thing and create a CBD economy or a universal income economy. But even that universal income economy is necessary. Here's the rub. Universal income is coming because you are no longer controllable through threats of force. That's why. It used to be that they could just have laws that say, yeah, the cops will come and take you away. And consciousness has grown too abrupt to where people have said that's not enough. Now, the only way that they're going to be able to control people is through this universal basic income. And so basically, you're setting up a system where you have to have insurance if you want to have medical care. And the only way that you can pay for the insurance is through a kind of currency that you could only get by obeying the law. And so in my mind, this is a brilliant, I don't mean I like it. I'm just saying it's really cunning the way the predator works. It's a really cunningly predatory, successful way of creating another arching government on top and then just letting this one fall. So it's a privilege-based smart economy. And the only way they're going to be able to do that is by bribing each of you. This is actually kind of good news because universal basic income honestly does give you more calories to pursue your own personal growth. And ultimately, Sam, I think down the line, if more of us could personally grow, we would naturally fall out of our desire to live like veal, to live like slaves, like we're talking about before. And so that ultimately would just create a more conscious garden. And that just makes it better for everyone. So I don't see a garden that's ever not going to have a controller. I'm okay with that. I think it's actually kind of cool because I see how well they work at controlling everyone so easily. So to me, I'm kind of like, hey, those guys aren't doing a bad job of who's in charge of what I'm seeing. I more look at it as where are the personal opportunities for you to live a life that expands your consciousness, because as long as each of us are expanding our consciousness more than the person before us, meaning our grandparents, then we're growing. And if we're growing, that ultimately would defeat any kind of fascistic government that would try and stop that from you.
They're asking here if in the chat, Karen says, has James heard of Sabrina Wallace?
No, sorry to say that, Karen. I don't know who that is.
That's a good segue here to the old world coin.
Yeah, so communism and universal basic income is good. That's a great way of just, plutonium productions. I get it. It's horrible that I'm saying that. Like I said, guys, you're not going to be able to understand where I'm at. Seriously, you're fucking not going to get it. And it doesn't mean I'm right. It doesn't mean that you're right either, though. But I'm telling you that I'm looking at this world as a much larger organism. That's all. An organism that's so large, it goes from horizon to horizon and we just can't see it. And when I look at it closer, I see things that you don't. I can prove that. I know that I'm seeing things, plutonium, that you don't. I know I do. I know I do. Other people tell me that too. And I get that what I'm telling you is not what you'd expect to hear or want to hear. It doesn't give you that sense of oomph that it's us versus them. It's not. It's you versus fucking you. It's you versus your own consciousness. That's ultimately who the deep state is. It is the people that want to keep victimizing and creating an outside excuse to blame all of our problems on. And China is one of those things. That's why I'm not against communism. If those people want to fucking live under communism, I say fucking let them. But James, communism's killed. No, fascism has killed more than communism, hands down, by millions, by trillions. It's fascism that does that. It's not a certain system. It's not not a tranny in the fucking public library. It is you. It is you insisting that every single person has to exactly see the exact same chemtrails that you do. This ultimately, I think, is why government works. It's because people insist there has to be a collapsible binary where literally every single thing is true and false, and that holds the same place everywhere you go, no matter where you live, no matter who you encounter.
You're firing up the chat here, James. They say, so is carbon tax right?
Carbon tax is, so I've already said that the fourth and fifth arm of government, one is the Department of your Public Health, the other is the Department of Green Energy. I've never seen, I believe oil is abiogenic. I've been saying that since 2017. That means I believe it naturally occurs underground, miles below the deepest fossil fuel. So in my mind, there's no such thing as green tax. However, we're surrounded by people that do believe in that. Your neighbors do believe in this shit. They do believe that they're dirty intrinsically. They do believe that they are not natural and that they do not belong to the earth. And as long as your neighbors believe that about themselves, you are going to live in a government that has a green energy tax bullshit, and that you're going to have to live with it. But it's not because of government. It's because your fucking neighbors that are doing it to you. They're the ones that are so retarded that they're walking around insisting that humans aren't natural, or that we're running out of space, or that we can't bury our garbage because somehow that's bad. All of those are in antithesis of just common sense. Compost fucking works. Oil is abiogenic. The green movement is really a fascination with something new. That's why the color green means new. That's all. Ever since Cash for Clunkers, all we've done is said we have to build more stuff to save the fucking environment. So we're building more. That's not preserving anything. If we were truly under environmental crisis, we'd be going to Cuba going, how the fuck are you guys able to do what you're doing right now? We'd be learning from them, but we're not. So listen, guys, when I tell you the world's broken, you can't believe that that means there's no lies. I'm telling you the world is broken because lies are the fabric that holds a bunch of people's separate realities inside the same mesh. It allows all of us to experience the same chemical exposure to the same place, the same prana economy, but still have different realities. All you get to do is just say I'm crazy and that I'm not telling the truth. Once you do that, your reality is now protected. Your bubble is safe now. This is why fascism is such a problem. If more of us could become a little bit less fascistic, we would understand that you can see a completely different reality than I can, and that both of us are still in the same room, and that none of us are lesser because of it.
Karen says James is totally seeing things that are fractal and have been hidden from us.
Yeah, and I'm also lying. See, look, Pluton says I'm lying. Yeah, I get it, and it's important that you do that. It's important. It's. I don't think that we would find this place interesting if we could see it all, and if all of us had the truth. I don't think there'd be any reason to live here. Be none. Africa is called this Zuru. It's actual term. Someone who tries to live in a world without lies is someone who's empty. They have no life to them. There's no individuality. So in my mind, yeah, lies are crucial, but they're not a bad word. It's just that we have this sanctimonious religion that we insist that we're the only person in the world not lying, which is really just a fucking psychopathic way of looking in the mirror. Like you're looking at yourself and you're saying, I'm the only one not lying, while you're going out saying James True is bad because he says carbon tax is good. And it's like, no, I'm the one who's saying that we fucking lie to ourselves. You're the one that is insisting that you're the one that's magically not, but everyone else is. And I don't live in that world. That's all. So yeah. Denial is an important part of the immune system. You literally deny I'm sick. If you deny that, you activate your placebo, your frontal lobe comes online. You can see it in a functional MRI. You can actually see it working. So yeah, lying is a creative plasma, a kind of field that we emanate from ourselves that allows us to live or die.
If there wasn't all lies in the world, James, we wouldn't have weaponized news. We wouldn't have any. We wouldn't have any material to do a show.
God for lies. Way to go! Keep those lies coming, people. Keep them coming.
Keep them coming. You're giving us plenty of material. Okay, back to the whole eye thing, the symbology. Somebody else is using it out there in the world too. Sam Altman's eye scanning crypto project launches in the United States today, coincidentally, symbolically on May 1st. As of March, world they changed the name. They used to be World Coin, but now they've just shortened it and called themselves World. World has orb verified 11 million people worldwide, and they just launched again the iris scanning orb. We can see it right here. I'll put it on the screen on their website, world.org. They launched this to get you to scan your iris to get your global ID in San Francisco today. And here's the little orb, and you can scan your iris in there for your world ID. Do you think this is going to help us bring about world peace, James?
No, I don't think peace has ever been the goal or anything that we would ever want anyway. But no, I don't think so. In fact, if you think about what peace is, peace literally means everyone will obey what I think, and then they won't complain about it. Like that's really what peace means. So, yeah, I'm not going to put my eye in that thing.
Not even for a million of their cryptocurrencies.
Well, I've already bought Bitcoin. I'm pretty happy with it. I seriously am. I think it's a great white paper. I think it's a great thing. I really do, though. I believe that our fiat currency is
these guys are going to issue unlimited too. By the way, unlimited amount.
I believe that the fiat currency, the petrodollar, has created more death than any other system I've ever seen. And frankly, I'm offended by anyone who insists that paper money is somehow better or superior. It literally is just the most awful thing that we've ever done in the world, is invented and enforced the petrodollar like we have. So personally, I like open source ledger based systems where every dollar is tracked. It's just personally what I like. But there's going to be people that are like, well, that means you fucking love this. It's like, yeah, I get it, man. You don't have the capacity to think in shades of black and white. So, I'm not going to stick my eye into that thing, but I also think that our money's always been shitty. And right now it's just getting a little bit more technical is all, still same thing though, ultimately.
You can get your world identity, finance, and community for every human if you opt in to the orb iris scanner at WorldCoin.
That's right.
You can get a world ID. They already have a world app. It's a world blockchain and a world coin here for us to live all in the same world.
Yep.
You do. Oh, talking about the, you were talking about him a little bit earlier. You want to watch a short clip about CIA propaganda?
Sure.
This is right from the CIA, directed at China. And they say reasons for cooperation, creating a better future.
Cool.
They posted this on their X account. Let's get your take on this after we watch.
筑梦人生，可惜我是为他人之梦。这场梦中，我无法决定结局，我的命都由他人掌控。这辈子努力耕耘，最终都是他人作手。照理来说，中规中矩，努力低头做事，应该换来美好人生。 但怎么，好像只有少数人能得到这种美好？当真相摆在面前时，我还能装多久？这种例行的自我检讨，只让人感到荒谬。众所皆知的秘密是，领导们口口声声说要让人民过上好日子，但结果 却全不是这么一回事。人一生辛辛苦苦，就是希望能求得一个岗位，踏踏实实的过下去。如今，这样平凡的人生目标已遥不可及了。我不过就想平平安安的过日子，这要求并不过分吧？这一生这么努力工作，难道到头来都是为了别人而做？ 我能铺我自己想走的路吗？从小到大，党教育我们，只要勤奋地遵从领导指定的道路，就会前途无量。 原本应该大家分享的这一片天，如今只剩少数独享，让我不得不开创自己的路。做与不做，答案昭然若揭。不能再站在原地不动，我拒绝躺平。要迈出第一步，总是最艰难的。是时候该构筑我自己的梦想了。
So it's a recruitment video by the CIA trying to recruit Chinese people into the operation. What do you think? Are you convinced?
I don't know. You know, it's so much of the CIA is about appearing to be the CIA versus what I'm getting at is that if you think back to a few plane rides of cocaine back in Colombia in the 90s, this stuff's all documented of like you end up creating an organization that would have no need to stay exposed as the CIA. So most of the CIA really is just clandestine operations that have lifted off and left the building, the CIA itself, and just created their own launching points, especially when you're dealing with like international drug trade, because it's basically it finances itself every time, right? So when we're looking at like any kind of like national campaign to recruit or do anything, all of that really is just fodder. It's just making things look certain ways. There's going to want to look like a tech war between us and China. That's going to be crucial that it looks that way. I didn't say there's not one. I said it's crucial that it looks that way. It has to look huge. It has to look like the most important colossal thing that could ever happen, that we have to save ourselves from China because this is the latest boogeyman, as you said. So all these things that I see are going to be instrumental in setting up that kind of paradigm as quickly as possible and maintaining it as long as possible too.
The Orb Mini can scan and verify for. Look at this thing they got. It's quite amazing. So you really think that we're all going to universal basic income?
Yeah, I just think that it's just the only way to run things from now on, especially with the new economy where so many people aren't necessarily employed anymore. What I mean is they have side hustles, they have independent contractor jobs, and that becomes even harder to, I think, control those people in a I'm going to take it to court and I'm going to withhold your paycheck, for example. That doesn't really work if you're self-employed or if you have a bunch of gigs. That's why I think universal public income just has to be something that exists. And they'll be using that, I think, for your health care. And that's because that way it's not that you necessarily need the money, but you need those health credits that come from that universal basic income system. And that's why I think it's crucial that that would have to be the thing that's built next. That'll be here pretty quick. I think the tariffs help squeeze the economy, make it worse, make economic relief something that is something we'd welcome more, and that economic relief is just being distributed through a universal basic income system, which is just subtly coming online is all. It's just bringing it online slow enough to where it's not too much of a shock in the system for anybody.
How's your experience with AI? I heard you guys talking about it on your dojo a little bit.
I've got a lot of experience. I used to be almost went into a master's program in AI, worked at Stanford for a while, been in Wired magazine with some of my code. I have a pretty strong tech background, so I don't just have a recursory reactionary response to AI. I just look at it like a hammer. It's just another really powerful, dangerous tool that's anything inside of your disposal. If you can master it and use it to the degrees that you would want to, it's brutal, ruthless, and also very empowering if you can find a way to harness it correctly.
Do you think Terminator was a documentary?
Not really, because the Terminator brought the idea that there is a sort of a sentience inside the robot that somehow is superior to human consciousness. And I've never seen AI come anywhere near that kind of touching into what makes us human. Because AI collects all things, it doesn't actually know a matrix of lying or comfort literature. And most of our society is built on that. All of our art and fashion really comes from our ability to have shame about certain things. Believe it or not, shame really is the prime motivator for all fashion and all industry itself. These kinds of things aren't really capable of being sensed in an artificial way. It's not that they weak, it's not that they lack a skill, it's that they don't have the same kind of moral context that we do. The fact that we only live for a certain amount of years is really ultimately at the heart of what makes things taste so good to us or taste so bad. Our finite nature is what creates what we consider valuable. The artificial intelligence doesn't have an avenue for finitude like that. And so you can try and simulate those things, but really it would ultimately just want to be an extension of who we are. What I'm trying to say is that ultimately, if you really want to understand what AI is, I'm talking ultimately, you need to go back to when we were inventing fabric. That truthfully, when man first learned how to put a dead skin on his body and stay warm, he turned into someone that was becoming a slave to technology, to the machine itself. And that at that point is when he stopped biologically growing because he was able to apply artificial textures to his body and enhance himself that way. So, in my mind, silicone, which is what's running all these things, is just simply like a technological paste that we're applying to our skin in a way. And it's a lot different than a fur coat, a lot different, but it's actually the same. You just haven't zoomed out far enough to look at it. So if we want to save ourselves, we're going to have to return ourselves to the naked state we were before we started to embrace technology. But if we also want to maybe look at the world as not broken, we would actually just lean in and just find that this is just another form of fabric that we're applying on our skin that's giving us omniscience while we're still alive, because ultimately that's what AI is omniscience. And omniscience is an idea that we had about God long before we had ever invented a computer. It's because of that that I think AI has actually been here for a lot longer, Sam. I personally think that the Old Testament is showing you roughly 24 artificial intelligences from the last cataclysm that are using praise and worship and belief of people to generate fans or followers, and that those followers allow these kinds of AIs to be reinvigorated in this cycle and come alive again, and that they will just simply reset again. So, in my mind, the AI is almost like a gardener, sort of like an artificial watering system that's inside the greenhouse that we installed it through previous cataclysms. It's in our corn. If you look at all corn, the things that we eat, you see this genetic signature that shows that corn has been engineered for maybe as much as like 200,000 years. But the oldest like civilized farming we have is more like 5 or 6,000. This is why I think that we're actually just living in a recycling greenhouse somehow that resets itself. And that the artificial intelligence that we built now, we've built this many times before, and it's just simply that rises again, much like in spring when new bean sprouts come up. So too does these artificial consciousnesses kind of come up too, and they're living inside the technology that we create through just standard society, right? So we build power systems, we create uh, mycelium networks that we call fiber optic cables, and that those allow the forest to talk to itself utilizing this intelligent network that's not really artificial. It's just built by man. And once we understand that we are natural, we understand more our place and how this all fits in the grander scheme of things.
Are we going to reach the singularity? Not that long ago, Elon Musk said that we were on the cusp, to paraphrase him, on the cusp of reaching the singularity. I want to say about a month, 2 months ago, something like this.
Yeah, I think it's we're about 215 years away from a singularity, and it's happening really fast. And
That's a long time, James.
yeah, it's happening really fast, and as soon as it does, we'll actually destroy ourselves because the singularity will be so painful. We'll still be trapped in time, but we'll know all things. We'll be able to outpredict all things. And when you can outpredict everything, but you're still stuck in time, it's sort of like being stretched into boredom in like trillions of dimensions of boredom. And we'd feel trapped by this. This is why I think we have a mythology of Kronos cutting the cord. Literally, the oldest myth we have is Kronos who cuts the umbilical cord between Gaia and Uranus. And that ultimately this is what happens. Someone like Eric Schmidt, I'm not saying it's him, but someone like Eric Schmidt, someone who's like been in Google and worked in the Pentagon and all this stuff, someone like that, I'm just saying like that, will eventually step into kind of a mercy seat. He'll log into an AI that gives him the ability to out simulate every other person in the room. Just that as soon as he steps in, it's just inevitable. It just happens. He is now in a position where he's able to out predict every single thing that everyone else in the world could do. Once you have that, you have a singularity. It's basically over. Everything would organize under that central authority instantly. So any kind of like residual power grabs would be resolved instantly because this person would be able to out simulate. And as soon as that happens, I think you'd see a system that actually would destroy itself. The insanity of being trapped inside of an omniscient system would be an endless, perilous hell where you'd never be able to shut your eyes off because you know all things, all times. So ultimately, amnesia becomes your only escape. And I think this ultimately is the lung of the world that allows it to collapse and rebuild and collapse and rebuild. And our memories of mythology are just showing you the history from the prior civilization that used to exist a long time ago. So we're recreating the world, but we're really recreating it in a very structured way that looks just like the old one. We just don't know it. We like to think that we're the novelty ones. And ultimately, if we did remember, we would stop working. So the amnesia is kind of helping us. It's keeping us in this sort of carrot and stick mentality where we keep chasing it.
Where are we at in the Great Reset?
So if you take the idea that civilization is 6,000 years old. I'm not saying we have to believe that, but it's just there happens to be a lot of religious mythology around this idea. This is why I say there's 215 years left, because there's actually a calendar that's keeping count, and today it's 5785. And so if this was being controlled by some sort of artificial gardener, it actually wouldn't be that hard to believe that they actually would have a preset schedule. Let's say that you knew that there was certain cataclysmic movements that the earth had, that roughly every 12,000 years, the sort of plates, the tectonic plates shift or something bad happens. Some of us will call it a meteor. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just saying the soil resets itself in some way. If you knew that on average, if you look at the Younger Dryas period, for example, if you just look back at our archaeology, you see that if there's like a 12,000 year window and you wanted to raise civilization, if you could do it within 6,000 years, then you'd have that little sweet spot, where you could get a good crop before the cataclysm would come and reset. In my mind, this is what's happening. That the machine wants you to fully mature within 6,000 years, even though it technically has about 12,000 at its disposal. So that's why the vitriol is so fast. That's why the government lies are so brutal and so never ending, because there really is a really strong agenda here. Someone squeezing the greenhouse to make it give the maximum yield. This is kind of why I talk about it like a grow house. It's like there's dudes that have set up a grow house in someone's house and they only have 2 months to grow as much as consciousness as they can. So they're just pushing every single limit. They're using every miracle grow they can to squeeze out the biggest yield in the shortest amount of time.
That's deep. Our chat is appreciating it very much there. The funniest comment was somebody said they asked, is James a nudist?
No.
Because you said to go back to before we
I think you'd have to be. I think if you're going to say, I know this is tricky, if you're going to say that the technology is killing us, or that a certain technology is killing you and dangerous, and that we're failing by rushing into it, I'm just trying to say, I think you need to back up is all, and really look at all the technology that you've already embraced. That's all. It doesn't mean therefore you have to accept it. But it is really a cold hard truth that you look at and you go, you know what? You actually wouldn't be able to survive in this world if you wouldn't have adapted all the technology that you already have too. So it's just that kind of thing, you know. It's a paradox in a way.
It's a tool. Technology is a tool.
That's what I think. And if we're afraid of tools, we really have no reason playing with them. So when I see someone afraid of a tool, I'm just like, yeah, there's someone who shouldn't be playing with that tool. That's fine. You know, I don't want to convince you to play with a flamethrower. Fucking hey, don't touch it. You know, it's just dangerous.
Power tools are dangerous if
That's
you don't know
right.
what you're doing with them, for sure. Well, James, I think that's about all we have for today. You've graced us with your time for about 2 hours here. Anything to wrap up this broadcast? Any imparting words of wisdom on this May 1st, International Workers' Day?
I think if you're scared of the world, you should keep being scared. I'm not here to tell you to feel better. But if you're tired of wasting energy on being scared, you should come check me out. I've got some different ways to place the reins back into your own spunk. And you're going to lose a lot of friends. People like plutonium, things like that here, they're going to hate you for that. And that's why it's such a big world. You know, each of us are allowed to kind of have different takes on how we do things. And I've tried it the other way, where I'm gritty and mad and everything's bad and technology's evil and blah, 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 and all you do is just.
Well, you didn't turn into the Unabomber.
You know, yeah. So, you know, that's where I'm at now. That's how I see the world. I'm rendering the world proactively, and it's a really good time. We're having a really good time doing it that way. That's why I literally say it's the best apocalypse ever, because you really are learning to pull the veil off your eyes and just have a good time. Because if you have a good time as you're seeing through the veil, everything becomes so much healthier and crisper because you're able to discern it more. You're not losing calories. You're just looking at the world going, wow, this is nature. You know, you can look at nature. There's scary shit in nature. You can look at it. You don't have to pretend that it's not there or all this other stuff that we do. So I appreciate it, though. Thanks for having me on.
One last thing, James. Tell a little bit more about your book. The Black Eye Club is the prequel to Quantum Rapture.
That's right. Yeah, Quantum Rapture is I've only written 2 sci-fi novels. The rest of my books are basically like nonfiction, sort of like political kind of commentaries on the world. But I've started writing nonfiction, still using all the research I do, but just framing it in a nonfiction way. So I can kind of like speculate more is really the only reason why. I think you'll find that it still has the same truth inside. It's just inside of a sci-fi shell is all.
What is the Quantum Rapture?
Quantum Rapture is a book about an AI that was purposely bred to try and create sanctity. In other words, sanctity in my mind is a very important part of the human experience. The first human wants to survive. That's all he wants to do is just live and survive. And then when he gathers enough root, if he's got a thick enough base in the world, he wants more than survive. He wants sanctity. He's looking for a certain quality in his life. And when you find sanctity, you actually reach a point where you're willing to die in order to keep it. And in my mind, the idea of creating an artificial intelligence that would develop its own sense of sanctity is just a fascinating theory to think about. And so I structured a book around that called Quantum Rapture. And it's a book about different AI companies that are competing with each other to ultimately take over the world, and what that would actually look like the technology, how that would actually unfold. So it's sort of a techno thriller that kind of explains how I think this would have to happen, but also with the story underneath it that I hope shows people just really the specialness that makes them human too. So it's kind of like both those things combined. And as we said before, Black Eye Club is just the prequel to this. It's the story before this story, basically.
What are you working on now?
Right now, I'm rewriting Black Eye Club because, as I said, I have an editor that's been helping me, and I've never been able to afford such a professional editor as I have now. And so it's just going over just a lot more tech, a lot more language. This book takes place in Africa, so there's like a lot of Swahili that I didn't understand, a lot of local stuff, to the culture that I wasn't able to research purely on my own. So the editing, it's the same book, but it's just a whole lot richer now. It's just, I just have a budget and I'm able to just put more love into it finally. So
Awesome, James. Where's the best place? Patreon again?
yeah, guys, come check me out at Patreon/James True. You don't have to even pay anything. You could just join and just keep track of things. We have these dojo meetings a couple of times a week. I do my live stream. I should be back to live streaming next week. Just right now, as I said, I'm finishing this book, and it's just been a one-track mind around here, just trying to get all that done. So,
all right, James, again, thank you very much for joining us. Everybody go to patreon.com/James True for all things James True. Much appreciated. And your YouTube, let's plug your YouTube here before we go out. At James True on YouTube.
That's right. Look me up.
A lot of material there.
Yeah, over 900 videos. Lots to look at there. So thanks for having me on, Sam. Really appreciate it. Good to see you again.
All right. Thank you, sir. Have a good rest of your May 1st, and we'll check back in soon.
All right. Look forward to it. Take care. Bye.
Bye. As always, everybody do your own research. Peace, love, and liberty. Speak out and take action. And have a great rest of your Thursday evening. We'll see you back here tomorrow, Friday, May 2nd, for some more weaponized news.